Good morning and welcome to today's episode of The Daily Light. I know I always go MIA on this, but I'm actually working on turning these into a podcast, and I hope you guys will support me when I do it. For today's episode, I want to talk about this quote that I put on top. The wound is the place through which the light enters you. Have you guys ever heard of the Japanese art of kintsugi? I'm not sure if that's how to pronounce it, but whatever, it's probably pretty close. So kintsugi is when Japanese pottery breaks, and you would think that it's over. You would think that it's broken and it's useless and it's not beautiful anymore. Instead, what the Japanese do is that they mold it back together using gold. So this pottery that once broke is now even more beautiful because they've covered it in gold. They put gold where all the cracks were. So now it's more beautiful than ever. And sometimes when life happens to us, when we go through a struggle, we feel like we're broken and there's no more value in us anymore. And this morning I was reading my Bible, and I was reading the story of when King David lost one of his children. I want to read that to you. It's in 2 Samuel chapter 12, and I'm going to start on verse 16. Listen. David entreated God for the child. David was losing a son. He had a son that was born sick. So verse 16, David entreated God for the child. He kept a strict fast and lay on the ground the whole night. The elders of his house asked him to rise from the ground, but he refused, nor did he join them to eat. On the seventh day, the child died. David's servants were afraid to tell him that the child was dead, for they said, when the child was still alive, we spoke to him, but he would not listen to us. What will he do when we tell him that the child is dead? When David saw his servants whispering to one another, he realized that the child was dead and asked them, is the child dead? They replied, he is dead. Then David rose from the ground, washed and anointed himself, and changed his clothes. He entered the house of Yahweh and worshipped. After that, he went to his own house, asked for food, and ate. Then his servants asked him, why are you acting like this? You fasted and wept for the child while it was alive, but after it died, you got up and looked for food? David answered, while the child was still alive, I fasted and wept, thinking, who knows? Maybe Yahweh will be kind to me and let my child live. But now that he is dead, why should I fast? Can I bring him back to life? I can go to him, but he cannot return to me. You see, we go through things, and when we're going through things, we need to be able to always depend on God and ask God for that strength that we need to go through them, right? But once we see that something's happened and we're in a situation that we didn't want to be in, maybe it's not our fault, maybe something happened and now we're in the situation and we don't know what to do, we have to accept that. And from that place, just have full confidence in God. It says that David, instead of crying and kept on with the crying, David got up, washed himself, changed his clothes, meaning that he changed his attitude, and he went to give worship to God when he needed it. Because, you know, there comes a point in our lives that things have already happened, and we can't change that. The only thing that we can change is what we do from now on. It's like with the kintsugi. The vase is already broken. What are you going to do with that vase that's broken? You're going to put gold, and you're going to restore it better than ever, right? Now, here's the other thing. You know, a lot of times things like this happen to us, and maybe they're not our fault. Maybe someone passed away, like in David's case. Maybe we lost our business. Maybe a relationship ended, and it's things that we're not happy about. Or other times, maybe it's something that we caused, something that's our fault. So the guilt is even bigger because that thing is now broken because of us. Have you ever experienced that too? You know, even there through David's actions of repenting and going back to prayer and worshiping God, God still honored that. The part of the story that I left out is that this child that David had was actually the result of adultery. That's right. This child was with a woman that was a married woman. So David had sinned, but still, God is faithful because David repented and entrusted everything into God. My Bible actually says in the bottom footnotes, God will let grace pass through where sin has passed. So it doesn't matter what's happened, as long as you pick yourself up and you entrust everything to God, He will make something beautiful out of it. But it's your actions. You know, you can stay crying, You can stay regretting. You can stay in that dark place, but that's not going to get you anywhere. What's going to get you somewhere is to entrust it all to God, change your attitude like David did, and move forward. Now, one more note. David went on to have another child with this woman. He married her and he had another child with this woman. This child was King Solomon. And if you know anything about the Bible, King Solomon was one of the richest kings of Israel, and he's actually one of the wisest. The Bible says that God was so pleased with Solomon, this child of David, after this whole thing happened, that he said to Solomon, like, ask me whatever you want and I'm going to give it to you. And King Solomon asked him for wisdom. So it said that he was the wisest man that ever lived. So just like kintsugi, just like gold will repair all the wounds, let God repair those wounds in your life, whether they're your fault or not. God can bring something really beautiful out of it. Thank you so much for joining me today. If this message touched you or you know anyone that needs to hear it, you know the deal. Please share and comment below. Have a blessed day, and always remember to let your light shine.